Please read the disclaimer before watching this video. After that, John was allowed to come into her room. She let him play with Stanley and Theodore, watching anxiously the first time he had learned to press the buttons and make them move. She would be crushed if he didn't like them, knowing instinctively that it would make her think less of him. They were her family, but John was fantasized as soon as he saw them. He loved her mechanical toys, and so she loved him. 2 years later, behind a tree, beside her father's workshop, he almost let her kiss him. She almost let him kiss her. And then it happened, and everything ended, at least for Charlie. Charlie shook herself, forcing her mind to go back to the present, looking again at Jessica's polished appearance. She looked down at herself. Purple t-shirt, denim jacket, black jeans, and combat boots. It felt like a good choice for this morning, but now she wished she had chosen something else. "This is all you'll ever wear," she reminded herself. She parked and locked the car behind her. Even though people in Hurricane did not usually lock the cars. Then she went into the diner to meet her friends for the first time in 10 years. The warmth, noise and light of the restaurant hit her in a wave as she entered. For a moment she was overwhelmed, but Jessica saw her pause in the doorway and shouted her name. Charlie smiled and went over. "Hi," she said awkwardly, flicking her eyes at each of them, but not fully making eye contact. Jessica scooted over on a red vinyl bench and patted the seat beside her. "Here, sit," she said. "I was just telling John and Carlton about my glamorous life." She rolled her eyes as she said it, managing to convey both self-depression and the sense that her life was truly something exciting. "Do you know Jessica lived in New York?" Carlton said. There was something careful about the way he spoke, like he was thinking about something, thinking about his words, for instance, before he formed them. John was silent, but he smiled at Charlie anxiously. Jessica rolled her eyes again, and with the flash of déjà vu, Charlie suddenly recalled that this had been a habit ever since they were children. 8 million people live in New York, Carlton. It's not exactly an achievement, Jessica said. Carlton shrugged. "I've never been anywhere," he said. "I didn't know you still lived in town," Charlie said. "Where else am I going to live? My family has been here since 1896, he added, deepening his voice to mimic his father. "Is that even true?" Charlie asked. "I don't know," Counter said in his own register. "Could be. Dad ran for mayor 2 years ago. I mean, he lost, but still. Who runs for mayor?" He made a face. I swear, the day I turn 18, I'm out of here. Where are you going to go? John asked, looking seriously at Carlton. Carlton met his eyes, just as serious for a moment. Abruptly, he broke away and pointed out the window, closing one eye, as if to get his aim true. John raised an eyebrow as he looked out of the window, trying to follow the line Carlton was pointing to. Charlie looked too. Carlton wasn't pointing at anything. John opened his mouth to say something, but Carlton interrupted. "Aw," he said, as he smoothly pointed in the opposite direction. "Okay." John scratched his head, looking slightly embarrassed. "Anywhere right?" he added with a laugh. "Where's everyone else?" Charlie said, peering out of the window, and searched the parking lot for new arrivals. "They're coming tomorrow," John said. "They're coming tomorrow morning," Jessica jumped in to clarify. "Miles bringing her little brother, can you believe it?" "Jason?" Charlie smiled. She remembered. Jason was the little bundle of blankets with a tiny red face peeking out. "I mean, who wants a baby around?" Jessica adjusted her hat primly. "I'm pretty sure he's not a baby anymore," Charlie said, stifling a laugh. "Practically a baby," Jessica said. "Anyway, I booked to the room at the motel down the highway. It was all I could find, really. The boys are staying with Carlton." "Okay," Charlie said. She was vaguely impressed by Jessica's organisation, but she wasn't happy about the plan. She was loath to share a room with Jessica, who now seemed like a stranger. Jessica had become that kind of girl who intimidated her. Polished and immaculate, speaking as though she had everything in life figured out. For one moment, Charlie considered going back to her old house for the night, but as soon as she thought it, the idea repelled her. The house at night was no longer the providence of the living. "Don't be dramatic," she scolded herself. But now John was speaking. He had a way of commanding attention with his voice, probably because he spoke less often than everyone else. He spent most of his time listening, but not out of reticence. He was gathering information, speaking out when he had the wisdom or sarcasm to dispense. Often it was both at once. "Did everyone know what's happening tomorrow?" They were all silent for a moment, but the waitress took the opportunity to come over for their order. Charlie flipped quickly through the menu, her eyes not really focused on the words. Her turn to order came much faster than she was expecting, and she froze. Eggs?" she said at last. The woman's hard expression was still fixed on her, and she realised she had not finished. "Scrambled wheat toast," she added, and the woman went away. Charlie looked back down at the menu. She hated this about herself. When she was caught off guard, she seemed to lose all ability to act or process what was going on around her. People were incomprehensible. The demands, alien. Ordering dinner shouldn't be that hard, she thought. The others had begun their conversation again, and she turned her attention to them, feeling like she had fallen behind. What do we even say to his parents? Jessica was saying. Carlton, do you ever see them? Charlie asked. Not really, he said. Around, I guess, sometimes. I'm surprised they're staying in Hurricane, Jessica said with a note of worldly disapproval in her voice. Charlie said nothing, but she thought, how could they not? His body had never been found. Now could they not have secretly hoped he might come back home? No matter how impossible they knew it was. How could they leave the only home Michael knew? It would mean really finally giving up on him. Maybe. Just maybe. That was what this scholarship was about. An admission that he was never coming home. Charlie was acutely aware of what they were in a public place. Where talking about Michael felt inappropriate. They were, in a sense, both insiders and outsiders. They had been closer to Michael, probably, than anyone in this restaurant. But with the expectation of Carlton, they were no longer from Hurricane. They did not belong. She saw the tears falling on her placement before she felt them. And she hurriedly wiped her eyes, looking down, and hoped no one had noticed. When she looked up, John appeared to be studying his silverware. But she knew he had seen. She turned grateful to him and not trying to order comfort. John, do you still write? Charlie asked. John had declared himself an author when they were about 6, having learned to read and write when he was 4, a year ahead of the rest of them. At the age of 7, he completed his first novel and pressed his world instructably in illustrated creation on his friends and family, demanding reviews. Charlie remembered that she had given him only 2 stars. John laughed at the question. I actually do my E's the right way around these days, he said. I can't believe you remember that. But I do actually, yeah. He stopped, clearly wanting to say more. What do you write? Carlton obliged, and John looked down at his placemat, speaking almost to the table.